Hello, Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Fire Force Chapter 289. When we last left our heroes, hoo boy, last chapter. So the debate between Shinra and Haumea continued, as Haumea continued to argue that despair will always lead to salvation, which will always lead to despair, which will always lead to salvation, a never-ending cycle of unending misery, and the only way out is death. And to emphasize her point, she showcases the corpses of Amaterasu and Iris, who have supposedly both accepted that cycle and chose to die, completely off-screen, if true, jettisoning all of the little nuggets of interesting ideas we were starting to get from Iris for, I guess, shock value. Not a big fan of that in any way, shape, or form. And so neither was Shinra, as he went straight on the attack. Sho sort of pulled him back, you can't do this for revenge, or else you're saying that her death is your salvation, which is just really the same thing. We're here again. You have to fight for the good of the world, and so they try to do that using Shattered Universe to sort of stop time. But not even that works, because as they go to attack Haumea, now with better thoughts in their heads, they're pushed back somehow. No idea how, but yeah, that's sort of where we left off. So let's jump right on into Chapter 289, Becoming One. Our picture here is some guy, just livid, enraged leader, boiling with rage, face against God. So, is that supposed to be Shinra on some level? Because I don't see it at all. But I guess it kind of, even in a stylized form, I don't see it. I don't know. Anyway, scan later page, go by the manga page. Anyway, we open pretty much where we left off. The blurb says, an attack done within stop time. But why didn't it reach Haumea? And Sho notes, I attacked her during stop time. And Shinra agrees, yeah, me too. And Sho calls, what did you do, Haumea? But here's the thing, though, is that stop time, as I recall, let's say it was granted by the evangelist, but we learned a while back that thanks to how close Adola is, Sho can now use stop time without the evangelist's blessings, and scratch all that. Anyway, Haumea counters, not a thing. My existence has been here and only here, just as despair has always existed. What the fuck does that even mean? She is here, and she's now a metaphor for... Is she because I thought the evangelist was the metaphor for despair incarnate. Maybe Haumea as the sort of avatar of the evangelist that she's kind of acting as is now just as immortal? As untouchable? I don't know. Shinra snaps, don't play with me. What did you do? And Sho thinks the only thing that can make this happen is Inka's ability. How so? I thought her ability was just predicting where fires were about to occur. But then also she did develop a little bit of an ability when she started tracing things. But I still don't see how tracing things would really help here. And Haumea tells them, the souls of the other pillars are with me now. And of course that would include Sumire. And what was Sumire's ability again? Let me see if I can find that real fast. Because she throws some, shockwaves at the two of them. Okay, I don't know what that has to do with her power. But they're blown back, way far back. And Shinra sort of slowly gets up, coughing. That attack did a number on him. Sorry, I lost train of thought there for a second. Haumea goes on, would you, the savior, prefer to die in place of me, the saint? Either way, despair will arrive unto the world all the same. Okay. So, that would imply that something about that line makes me think that her death, or Shinra's death, is like the trumpet sound, the omen of eternal despair. Maybe. I don't know. Again, this whole setup is so fucking weird. Shinra goes back on the attack, but it, it looks like Shinra fades through Haumea like Toby style, not actually damaging her. And Shinra snaps, "Damn it! I know I should be hitting her." And Haumea just stares at him. Shinra goes at it again and again, but it doesn't do anything. It's useless. Fate itself has decided that I can't be touched. So maybe that is a kind of power-up of Inka's ability. If Inka was initially, just acknowledging where fires would be, she was then sort of creating fires herself. Maybe at some point she was sort of denying the ability for fire to exist or something. I don't know. It still just feels like we missed a storyline with Inka. Like, there was some... I brought this up last week that, that would have worked better if... That Inka's story back in 287 would have worked better if we had seen her go from, I want to have fun and live as long as I can, but not, stay too safe because I care about the thrill and the danger. If we had seen that transition to life is misery, let's just die. Because we never got that. And we never got this power-up either. It's just sort of frustrating storytelling here at the end. And Sho tries to stop Shinra. "Brother, don't be rash." And Haumea brings her hands down, and the ground just erupts under Shinra, sends him flying back. He hits the ground, if you can really call it that, excuse me, and coughs up blood. He has no real ability that could touch Haumea at this point. And Shinra gets up. "Let me get this straight. Even if we defeat Haumea, if I die, the world falls into despair, then what the hell are we supposed to do?" And Sho tells him, "Calming yourself for starters. Your despair or death will undoubtedly become a trigger for a great cataclysm that will destroy the world." Well, it seems to me that if you just don't kill Haumea, I think the way they have to win this fight, if Haumea's death does the same thing that Shinra's death would do, then what they have to do is get Haumea to see the light. I mean, I theorized, I don't know if I quite went into detail, but I think I did a couple times, my Haumea theory that has since been largely disproven, that the evangelist was exclusively filtering the negative thoughts of humanity into Haumea, but telling her that that was all of the thoughts of humanity, and so which then, of course, led to her madness. And so if Haumea learned the truth, she would end up changing sides out of revenge, possibly. That didn't happen on any level, especially because the madness aspect is largely gone at this point, which is a shame, honestly. Haumea was a lot of fun. And I will sidetrack again for one more complaint, is that eternally placid Haumea is kind of boring. Haumea was such a fun villain. She was always down for a good time, and she kind of gave that vibe constantly. That she was just fun to watch. This Haumea just stands there so calmly. It's kind of disappointing. I miss fun, kooky Haumea. But anyway, my thought was that she was sort of, if not become a good person, at least be out for revenge on the evangelist for ruining her. And that end result might kind of be the way to win this fight. Get Haumea to, at the very, if not, everything I said about filtering out thoughts isn't true, at least get Haumea to admit that she's wrong, and then you can, save Haumea and Shinra and not just let her plans go unchecked. That's all certainly a possibility. I don't know. Let's just go on. Great Cataclysm will destroy the world. The only one who controls the end of the Great Cataclysm is you, brother. You're the savior, and the saint has no say in that. And Shinra tells him, "I'm not gonna die, and I'm not gonna be swallowed up by rage, but I will stop Haumea." And he goes, coming back towards Haumea, yelling, "I fight for the sake of humanity." And there's this interesting thing, where despite the fact that all of the surrounding terrain should just be the black fire, it turns white at one point. Around where Shinra is. Maybe it's a kind of light versus darkness kind of thing, maybe? I don't know. But he brings his foot down, and it doesn't connect. We see the flame sort of splash, like it's like water or something. And Shinra tells her, "My death won't be one that's fated by the likes of you." And Sho rushes in, blade going, "We have to surpass her." And they both phase right through her. Doesn't do any damage whatsoever. because fate or whatever. And then they're blown back by Sumire's powers. They skid across the flames. Shinra gets right back up for the sake of my comrades. And Haumea he's about to find out about Arthur's death. Because Haumea asks, but if you actually managed to protect the people most important to you, and he specifically flashes back to Iris, who is dead, and he glares. We see what Haumea is doing, though. She's trying to bring up that rage again. Sho tells him, brother! But Haumea goes on, the flames of rage can only be extinguished by the death of your opponent. And Sho tries to get through to him, brother. And Shinra stops him. It's okay. Revenge will turn me into a devil. And so he's saying, I'm not going to go through with it. But Haumea counters, it is also true that you became a hero, thanks to those very flames of vengeance. Perhaps all this time, you masked your actions and claims behind a so-called sense of justice, because that sounded nice. So she's trying to call into question everything Shinra has ever done here. And Shinra just looks at her, but we hear the narrator again. The saint's words bear no hostility. He could tell it was absolute justice. I guess justice there is just kind of meaning truth or something, what she's saying. And all that righteousness did nothing but frustrate him to his core. But Shinra is still just calm. I'm a fire soldier, not a devil. I fight for the sake of saving people's lives. But those words were as weak as a small fish struggling to go up a waterfall. Their weight couldn't be compared to the words of a god who spoke the consensus of humanity's subconscious. Humans have persisted on living purely by facades and lip services. And we see Shinra back on the attack, unable to actually do any damage though, because as Haumea is kind of implying, maybe he needs that revenge. That's the only fate that will actually hit her, which will then, lead to the cataclysm. And that pretense is often opposite to their true feelings. Humans were originally savages, true to their instincts. Civilization's advance surpasses that. So what are his true feelings? The answer is exceedingly simple and awfully instinctual. He wanted to kill her. Okay, let's talk about the narrator. How accurate, I don't think it's an omniscient narrator. But I'm also going to push back around a theory that I've kind of believed in too. I think that all of us are kind of putting too much stock in this idea of Fire Force as a story. And I think that's something that's been important outside of Adola. But I don't think Fire Force is leading to, the world is actually a manga, and so, Okubo is the evangelist. I don't think we're going to get anything close to that. I think the reason that Fire Force works on story grounds is due to the subconscious, right? Is that people view their lives as a story in some sense. It's why we have terms, when you move on from a job, it's called the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. We base our lives in these story terms, and so Fire Force, the world of Fire Force started to work more like a story thanks to Adola. And I think people, myself included, have kind of been ignoring the Adola part of this and just looking at it as sort of the world is actually a story with an actual writer. Going back to, say, to the 287 bit, where Haumea talks about God didn't create humanity, humanity created God. It's the same kind of thing with the metafictional aspects of the Cataclysm arc. But then what does that make? Where does that leave our narrator, right? That's what I'm getting at here. Are we, I don't quite believe that the narrator is completely, I don't think he's omniscient. I don't think what he says is inherently true. I don't think he's some passive, I don't think he's some, casual observer without any viewpoint. Mainly because I can't really believe this manga's point is people are basically monsters. If we believe the narrator at this point, then we have to accept that everything Haumea is saying is true. And I just don't accept that. I don't accept that's the point of this manga either. So maybe the narrator is the evangelist. And stick with me here, because what I'm getting at is tied up in that God, the next line of humanity created God. God was born from despair and so created more despair. I think maybe the evangelist... I feel like I might be like completely backtracking myself by saying the evangelist set up the world or is kind of not as an author. Because what I was getting at earlier, right? Blah, 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 blah. Calming down, starting over, piecing the thoughts together. A lot of thoughts in this fucking final arc trying to get out. So what I was getting at, the earlier theory, right, that the evangelist might just be the author, I think the evangelist is something more akin to a narrator. Not actually a creator of the story, but sometimes speaks with a creator's voice, even though the creator itself in this instance doesn't actually exist. Maybe. I think I might be onto something there. Though I may be way off base, I may be completely ununderstandable at this point, I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I think this narrator is the evangelist, who is at this point, maybe Shinra is hearing the narrator's thoughts, or the evangelist's thoughts in this theory, being impressed onto his mind, maybe convincing him that's real. I don't know. The narrator goes on, his salvation only exists in her death. Although even he understands this isn't true salvation, he still felt he needed to kill her. And we see Shinra back with those kind of claw feet, right, that we saw way back, I think, in the Rekka fight. I'm not sure we've seen it since he flew down to save Tamaki. Way back when. And Sho grabs onto him. Stop it, big brother! This is exactly what Haumea wants! But Shinra still looks perfectly calm. It's okay, Sho. Don't worry. I'm not angry at all. And Haumea tries to cut through that. You're a terrible liar, Shinra. But Shinra tells her, I will fight to protect everyone. And Haumea counters, then how are you going to protect yourself? And she just shoots through Shinra. Okay. Your death will complete the great cataclysm, thus bringing salvation to humanity. And we see she's even crying at her actions. With a single attack, humanity's hope takes a critical blow. Can the destruction of the world be stopped? To be continued chapter 290, Piercing Hope. Okay, my first thought, when I saw Shinra with a hole in his gut, is that Iris is going to live. If Shinra can get that hole through his gut the same way Iris has hers, they're both going to come out okay. That's my theory. I don't think Shinra is going to die, unless the series is truly taking a mad dive into nihilism. I don't think that's how the story is going to end. And so let's talk this chapter. It's weird. I mean, it's late game Fire Force. It's late game Fire Force. It's like end game Fire Force. It's fucking weird. It's been getting weirder as it's been going on. And I still think this final arc is kind of, at least these last 3 chapters, might be the point where Fire Force is just too weird for its own good. But right now it's kind of straddling that line. It might turn out either way. I don't know. Looking through it again, I still feel like we missed a whole character arc for Inca. I just feel robbed of that. That was just a weird thing to never have. If Inca's powers now include canceling fire, we should have seen that at some point. But it just feels there was a whole arc for her that just got cut. And I don't know why. I don't know what reason Okubo had for I don't know. I don't know what thought. I'm not going to try to ascribe a thought process to what happened to Inca. I'm just going to say it's weird and something is missing from her story. But then we get to the actual stuff of, this concept of one of them has to die for the cataclysm, and the only flames fated to hit Haumea are flames of revenge. But the weird thing with that is that in the end, it doesn't matter. Because the flames of revenge never reach Haumea. Shinra controls those flames constantly until Haumea just decides to skip a few bits and just kill him herself. Which is a weird thing, I think. When you have your whole chapter built around, Shinra trying to hold back his feelings of hatred, and then in the end, Haumea just works around all of that. What was the point of it all? I don't know. It's still a weird thing. Fire Force is still ridiculously weird now. Like, it was already ridiculously weird ever since 216 happened, but, like, it's gotten even weirder these past few weeks. And also, like, I'm just not entirely, okay, let me think. A part of me, like, the more this goes on, the more skeptical I am that Okubo is gonna pull out of this dive into nihilism. That the more skeptical I am that he's not gonna say, actually the White Cloud were right, and then Shinra dies, and that's the end. Which I don't think is going to happen, but there's a part of my brain that's like, okay, but he keeps going on with this. And, you know, I just spent a good bit of time denying this idea of Fire Force, or pushing back against the Fire Force as a story concept. But also, if Okubo has talked about Fire Force being his last manga, and, like, if we do accept full on, there is an actual physical author writing Fire Force in universe, what better way to end your manga career than just having that author end the world, I guess? Like, I can see the connections there. I don't think that's where that's going. I hope that's not where it's going. But also, it might be where it's going. I don't know. This chapter was a good bit more fun than last one. Admittedly, just because, you know, not killing off Iris this chapter is always good. But yeah, it's still just weird. Like, I could, you know, there's a whole lot to dig into. I talked a lot about the narrator and you know, Shinra's revenge, or feelings of revenge and all that. And I know it's like the danger of a serialized story. You're never quite sure where the author is going until the end, and you can't just keep reading. But it's stuff like this that makes me, like, desperate to know where Okubo is going with all this already. Because I'm starting to get a little nervous. Maybe I'm wrong to be nervous, sure. But I'm still a little nervous. So yeah, that's my final thoughts on this chapter. There's a lot of good stuff here, but I'm getting a little nervous. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe. You know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!